Near mint condition, the home of collected editions. Oh my gosh, look at that panel of Batman. You have the absolute, you have the deluxe. DC Comics firing on all cylinders.
Welcome to Near Mint Condition, where today we're going to be doing a first look at the Doom Patrol World's Strangest Heroes DC Finest trade paperback. Let's get into it. Hello everybody, I am Dom of X, Near Mint Condition Manager, and today we are going to be again taking a first look at DC Finest, the Doom Patrol, the World's Strangest Heroes. Here is a look at the front cover, with of course issue 94 being the mainstay for the cover art, with Bruno Premiani and Arnold Drake prominently listed on the bottom of the book. Here is a look at the spine of DC Finest, the Doom Patrol World's Strangest Heroes, from the years 1963 to 1966, which is the first years that the Doom Patrol have been existent. And then here is a look at the back of the book, with the same old presenting DC Finest stories in the same format that they do for all of these, reborn out of disaster, with the timeline there again set from 63 to 66. Let's go ahead and take a look inside of the book and talk about the contents and what's different from the omnibus and this trade paperback. Alright, let's go ahead and set time aside to look at the insides of DC Finest, the Doom Patrol World's Strangest Superheroes, with the cover again being by Bob Brown. Here's a look at the left side of the copyrighted material information, with the heroes of the Doom Patrol. We got the Chief, Negative Man, Elastigirl, and Robotman, all featured on the sides in an overlaid format. Here's a look at the table of contents, and it does note that all stories are written by Arnold Drake and illustrated by Bruno Premiani, along with letters by Stan Starkman and covers by Bob Brown, unless otherwise noted. So you will get notes like this saying, hey, the letterer is unknown, or this is a cover by both Arnold Drake and Bob Brown, and a look at the mapping in and of itself. This book collects The Brave and the Bold, issue number 65, Doom Patrol 86 to 102, Challengers of the Unknown 48, My Greatest Adventure 80 to 85, and Teen Titans number 6. The only difference between this specific trade paperback and the omnibus are that it does include the Teen Titans issue number 6 from the 1966 run, which I will get to in a bit of a moment. This has also been previously collected before in the omnibus format, one of which is coming out later this year in March. You also have the small, thinner volumes, so the Silver Age volume trade paperback, so you got 2 of those. You also have the archives, which are in full black and white, and the Showcase presents the Doom Patrol Volume 1 trade paperback. The tales of the Doom Patrol began in a series called My Greatest Adventure, which ran for many issues as sort of this anthology series before they got introduced. After all, it did take 80 issues before the Doom Patrol finally got introduced. You already had DC sort of starting up this age with, of course, Green Lantern and Flash, which were heavily edited and corrected by none other than Julius Schwartz, which we've already talked about earlier, as DC has already done those Finest series. So you have that archival time in there saying, we already started off with some of these Silver Age stories, and you had the superhero mindset in the minds of folks alike who are reading American comics. We just wanted to get pulp stories. We didn't just want crime stories. It was a lot more of the variety and sorts of Superman is flying in the sky, or Batman is fighting, or Wonder Woman is fighting. Everybody wanted to have those heroes in their comic books. But little did they know, a company called Marvel Comics, which used to be called Timely Comics, from what I remember from various stories told by my comic book store owner, they would publish and move on to create superheroes such as Spider-Man, Mr. Fantastic, Invisible Girl, The Thing. They would create and embellish their name in the superhero genre, and they would eventually take over the 60s. And the reason to why I bring that up is because the Doom Patrol are in very many ways, I think, comparable to the Fantastic Four and the X-Men, with the Chief and Professor X having very many similarities. You've got Elastigirl sort of being a little bit like none other than Invisible Girl, Sue Storm. So you do have some of those coincidences there. And I bring this up because I want to bring in Arnold Drake, who was arguably the most hip, freshest, and all-current writer of the 1950s and the 60s. He decided to bring in Bob Haney along with him, and I did manage to read from a 2000 interview that he had detailing how My Greatest Adventure came to be about and the story behind it all. Murray Boltinoff, who was the editor, came to him one day and he said, "We're having a lot of trouble with the My Greatest Adventure. It's starting to lay an egg, and we sort of need to go a little bit astray from the superhero, but we need a superhero to sort of spice things up." So he said, okay, came back a couple of hours later, came back with the idea of Niles Calder, who is this guy in the wheelchair, super smart guy, can figure stuff out. We need to call it the Doom Patrol. But it needs to be a little different. It needs to be a little weirder. It needs to be more science fiction-y and awkward with some different elements. We'll have a talking brain be one of their main bad guys. We need to spice it up. So that is how the Doom Patrol came to be about. And I'll link the article of the interview that he had in the description. I found it a very, very interesting read and something that I wanted to research before I read all of the issues in this specific trade paperback, or what it is collected in here. So none other than that, Bob Haney also managed to join him. Drake and Bob Haney were very close friends in the 50s, and DC decided to bring them along for the ride. And he co-wrote the first two stories in My Greatest Adventures, detailing the origin story of the Doom Patrol. Haney then leaves, but then comes back to do this Teen Titans book that is collected in here, and I'll go ahead and explain that a little bit later in this video. Even with all this context, Doom Patrol stands out as particularly weird. The group had all of these strange powers that made them a little bit different from their other superhero counterparts. If you had Superman flying in this, if you had Superman leaping off of the pages, or if you had Wonder Woman with, again, all of these super strength powers, he tried to make the Doom Patrol a little bit different in that aspect. So these are not your regular superheroes that you are going to be reading in this book. It is a mix and amalgamation of some very, very interesting characters. And I want to go over the origins of these a little bit, which is, of course, the first story that you read in My Greatest Adventure, issue number 80. So we meet three silhouettes and a man in a wheelchair who sort of explains their backstories, and then the text pans to, hey, you are experiencing the strangest heroes you will ever meet, which fits heavily into the themes of this book. And here, one of my favorite villains ever, the animal, vegetable, mineral man. I really, really am glad that I got to experience this in print the first time. The only reason that I had read this was because he was part of the Doom Patrol TV show, and I had DC Universe at the time, and I said, man, wouldn't it be cool if I decided to read whatever this first appearance is? It is a wacky story. You're going to get, again, a lot of that in here. You have Rita Farr, who's this Hollywood actor whose powers sort of emerged when she was over filming in Africa. Again, she is an actor. They never mention where in Africa. I can only imagine they're probably somewhere near Mount Kilimanjaro because they're near a waterfall. Nonetheless, it is a massive continent. And while they're shooting out the film, a bunch of volcanic acid and gases decide to say, hey, we're going to make your body extremely dysmorphic. This sort of giant size woman who is very, very big and can't control her powers. So that is how she joins the Doom Patrol, or at least, again, for that specific part of the book. You also have Larry Trainor, who is this ex-pilot that, while testing this K-2F rocket plane, aviation that would supposedly rival the highest any single airplane had ever gone up until that point in time, lost control of the gyro controls in the airplane, would crash land through an unknown wave belt of radiation that would exhale himself into a body of dark energy, eventually renaming himself as the Negative Man. And of course, Cliff Steele is a former European race car driver until he fell out of his car and went into a terrible accident during one particular race course, His body was so completely disfigured and failing that doctors who operated him said that they needed to put his brain in a robot body to save him. Inspiration for Cyborg, obviously later, but that is Robotman, and those are going to be the three main superhero characters that you are going to be following along in this volume, with the Chief also thrown in there. You also do get to meet Steve Dayton, who is, of course, Mento, and he does very much play a big part later in this book, and his relationship with Rita Farr is something that I don't know if I want to get into, again, to avoid spoilers, but these two characters particularly get close, and you will have to see what is up with them later in this book. This book also has the first appearance of Beast Boy, who, back then anyways, was one of my favorite characters from the Cartoon Network 2003 show. He makes his way in here. You get to figure out who he is, what his origins are in the specific issue of Doom Patrol issue number 99, what his backstory is, and if he's going to be able to join this team or not. He's a little bit weirder in the fact that he's a lot younger than some of these characters. You have him just sort of being in a completely different spot mentally than Robotman, Elastigirl, and Negative Man are, and you have to juggle alongside what is going to be going on with him in this book. And of course, the villains here are just the strangest and weirdest. Somebody did mention many times to me, man, we got weird, strange gorillas popping up in every single one of these books. And yes, this book is, again, no surprise that there are a lot of weird, strange gorillas who are big and one who can talk that are going to be a part of this book. You do get introduced to the Rogues Gallery of the Doom Patrol, one of my favorite Rogues Galleries in comics and one of the most underrated in my opinion. Again, the before mentioned Animal, Vegetable, Mineral Man, who is one of their weird villains that pops up in this title. You've got the Brain, who is a robot with the brain. He is sort of the opposite of Robotman in many different aspects. Monsieur Mallah, the gorilla that I was alluding to earlier, Madame Rogue, General Immortus. There are so many weird and interesting characters that are tossed in this book, and it works so perfectly. And the one thing that I stress that is very important in terms of this versus other Silver Age books I've read, Silver Age team books from DC I've read, aka Justice League, is that all of these characters have a lot more of a variance in their voices and their characterization. If you swapped out, say, dialogue from Cliff Steele and gave it to Larry, it wouldn't make sense for the particular actions that they're doing in this book. And I think if you replaced, say, Wonder Woman with Batman's dialogue, or Green Lantern with Flash's dialogue from any of these Silver Age tales that Gardner Fox had mentioned, well, it would work because those characters didn't have particularly set off individual characterization and voices back then. But here it's a lot more tonally cleared out. It's much better in the fact that you do get a sense of these characters being completely different from one another, and creators later like Grant Morrison, Rachel Pollack, Gerard Way, those creators would be able to use that for their own spins on the Doom Patrol. And that is due in part to the very, very strong writing of Arnold Drake. And along with him, Bruno Premiani sets himself completely apart, I think, from a lot of the other Silver Age artists in this time, where I have had the opportunity to read Aquaman and fall in love with Ramona Fradon, and obviously Carmine Infantino on The Flash, but this level of bizarreness in the pages of this book is, I think, on just another level. So you get this mix of interesting features with characters like you see Rita here, and you're just like, man, I want to know what's going on in this book. And it really is a perfect mix of creators working together perfectly and in sync to one of the most underrated titles of the Silver Age at DC Comics, and just honestly in any single comic published up to this point. It is a wonderful hodgepodge of a read, and if you liked the Grant Morrison or Rachel Pollack runs, you will definitely love Premiani and Drake Doom Patrol. And the one story that I wanted to highlight earlier was the Teen Titans story that is issued along in the back of this book. And the one story that I wanted to highlight that I talked about earlier in this book is the issue of Bob Haney's Teen Titans, issue number 6, which is where you get to see more of Garfield Logan and him just sort of harassing the team and saying, man, I really want to join the Doom Patrol. I want to be part of missions. And he says, well, if you guys don't want me, I'll find a team who does want me. And this has a very, very many similar vibes to the 2003 animated show with him joining the Teen Titans, who were at this time comprised of Dick Grayson Robin, Donna Troy's Wonder Girl, Garth's Aqualad, and Wally West as Kid Flash. And who knows, this is definitely going to play such a bigger part in not only what Beast Boy will eventually end up doing with the Doom Patrol and who decides to take him in, but also some subtle foreshadowing of his later possible adventures in New Teen Titans by Marv Wolfman and George Perez. I won't spoil what happens for you, but there are no extras in this book. They do cap it off here in the specific last part of the page. There are no timelines in the back as well, detailing some of the other DC Finest. But that, as they say, is that. Now, if you want to buy DC Finest, Doom Patrol, the world's strangest superheroes, please check out our sponsors.
If you're in Europe and you're interested in buying these books, definitely check out Walt's Comic Shop in Berlin, Germany. They have the cheapest pre-order prices, flat shipping rate of €12 for all EU countries, emails answered within 24 hours, waltscomicshop.com, and you can use the code NEARMINTCONDITION at checkout and get free shipping for all EU countries with your first order over €40. That's Walt's Comic Shop, your reliable source for omnis and premium collected editions in Europe. Ding!
CheapGraphicNovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more.
And that is going to be it for me. I am Dom of X. Let me know down in the comments section if you're going to be picking this up as well. You be you. Please stay safe, Minties, and have a wonderful, tastic day.